But speaking of being on your own, I'm not sure how I was going to transition that. We are going to start off on Lightshade LE. We're in the top left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the top left-hand corner. The red Protoss player coming out for the land of Poland. He is going to be representing Team Liquid. He is MaNa.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Lightshade LE, we have the Polish Protoss. He's blue, representing Team Alpha X. It is ArT. It's beautiful.
Pressure is completely off him for now.
Yeah, that it is. Right now, he just has to play out his game, and it's a bit of a shame, the scenario that he's in. You briefly mentioned it. ArT is not living in Europe at the moment. He is living in Korea, so he has a pretty big ping disadvantage here.
Yeah, what would it be, like at least 250 ms?
Oh yeah,
at the very least.
Yeah.
And especially in PvP, you know, a matchup that involves a lot of blink stalkers, disruptors, throwing the sentries here and there, that can make a massive difference.
That's also why, like, I want to say that ArT's performance here in DreamHack, it isn't necessarily indicative of his skill. Like, he did have to play through a lot of ping throughout every single one of his matches. I do believe that he could have performed a little bit better, but regardless, like, you know, he is spending that time in Korea, he is practicing, and eventually he will return back to EU, and that's when he can really shine.
The leg weights come off at that point.
Yeah, boy.
Unhindered.
Oh god, but now is not that time, as you said. And to be fair, like, he can try and stop his countrymen from advancing on. MaNa has to win this series 2-0.
He really does. Not a single map can afford to be given up here. But in a PvP, and knowing how volatile it is, there's a lot that ArT could pull off to cause that little bit of an upset.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. We'll see how the series plays out. So far, we don't have any kind of weird proxies out on the map. The players have been playing pretty straight up here with their openers. What's interesting is that even with their initial units, they're mirroring each other. Like, no one went for any adepts.
Yeah, both players going with the stalkers. There's a very deep lack of trust between these two players.
Yeah, exactly. And now we see them diverge a little bit. ArT going for those sentries so he can be a little bit more defensive and scout his opponents. Meanwhile, MaNa ramping up that aggression.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be a little bit favored when he goes across the map with stalkers. He wants to be able to maintain that.
Yeah, exactly. We saw something similar earlier today in the very first PvP that we casted from Petit Drogo, and we saw how aggressive he really could be and eventually overwhelm his opponents. We'll see if MaNa is the same, as at the moment, there we go, all 4 stalkers are going to be moving out.
And what are they gonna find? Whole ton of sentries is the answer.
Yes, thankfully there is a shield battery, so with this shield battery, ArT should be okay. Should be. I mean, obviously MaNa could try and focus fire, and he could try and snipe some of these sentries if ArT isn't careful.
Yeah, should have just about enough to two-shot these sentries. We'll have to be a little bit wary of the stalkers. But I'm liking this from MaNa. Does not overcommit.
Yeah, he pokes and then he just leaves straight away. He's like, okay, I see what your opening is. You know, you went for your sentries, you know, you're going a little bit more defensively. I'm going to back off, and yeah, we just move on from here. Both players going for their expansions.
Yep, ArT of course getting it that little bit quicker, but no big deal in the end. Both players opting for the blink stalkers, but MaNa is getting the forge a lot quicker.
Exactly, he's going to be looking to dive into that +1. We'll see what ArT has in store for us here. Obviously, he will be behind in upgrades, but he can try and... no, never mind. I was going to be like, yo, maybe he'll go for a robo instead and try and, you know, make up for it in a different way, but he will just be a little bit behind with his upgrades.
Blink Stalkers versus Blink Stalkers, let's go. ArT does go for the robo facility quite a bit quicker than MaNa does, though. We'll be able to start getting Immortals out again, probably posturing a little bit more defensively. Gets a good eye on his base. He knows that he's behind when it comes to the upgrades.
That he does.
Try to even that out.
Yeah. And I imagine we will probably see Immortals from here. I'd be very surprised if he prioritizes, say, a War Prism to be aggressive across the map, just because he's behind in a lot of other aspects. So yeah, that would be pretty surprising to me. We should see those Immortals, and we'll see where else we go from here. You know, who's the first to expand and whatnot, as both of them are scouting each other as diligently as possible.
People just really want to find something they can exploit in their opponent's composition, don't they?
Mm-hmm. That they are.
But now they are very much mirrored, so.
Yep, and MaNa is looking to be the first player to expand as he does send his probe over here at the third location. ArT's, yeah, he is as well, just a little bit later.
Okay. These Polish players, like, they are linked up in Utero.
Yeah, I don't know if they're familiar with each other or not. I know ArT is a lot newer to the scene compared to MaNa, who's a lot more old school. Yeah, I'm really curious as to what their relationship is. If anyone in the chat knows, let us know. Tell us.
Well, they're cordial enough to talk about pardon prices, so.
I guess so.
I imagine they've done a little bit of homework on one another.
That's interesting. MaNa does actually avoid the stalkers, and yo, he goes straight into the map. There's nothing here, mate. Oh my god.
Massive opening for him. Worst case scenario, he forces a recall and goes straight for that shield battery. But ArT is undeterred. Okay, never mind. There's a recall.
Yeah, recall is used a little bit late though, and he still ended up losing 6 probes.
Massive value MaNa's taken right now. Even at the worker count. I can just denies that aggression from ArT.
Yeah, honestly, that was really beautiful movement, by the way. Like the fact, like how he was able with his Haluk, he was able to spot the army, and he was able to just barely avoid it and slip past. Like that was impressive.
It's all about a vision here. You don't even need observers.
And
just have an idea of where your opponent's army's at.
yeah, and here we go, MaNa. We have the War Prism on the way. +2 is on the way as well. He's going to be looking to go across the map and maybe even try and get into the main base. It's on ArT to really try and keep an eye on where the army is of his opponents. He does have an observer out of the map, but he still doesn't really have eyes on the main Blinkstalker force.
That he does not. The Saluk will not see anything either.
Oh god.
In the completely wrong position for ArT. Meanwhile, let's look at the blink.
Yeah, he's gonna be blinking straight into the main base. Recall is on cooldown, so ArT, he has to maneuver his entire army. At the same time, we have a small Stalker force head towards the third.
And that's a very vulnerable mineral line. Speaking of vulnerable mineral lines, just where everything gets taken out there. If MaNa so wanted to, he could try to depower that forge, but he knows when to quit when he's ahead. Uses that recall.
You say quit when he's ahead, mate. He is very ahead. He just pulled ArT apart. He, again, recall wasn't cooldown. He had to move his entire army, and unfortunately, he didn't leave anything at his third base to defend. Sure, there was a shield battery and an overcharge, but it wasn't enough, and 19 drones went down. Perps.
Yeah, same difference in the end, and yeah, MaNa has a very comfortable lead when it comes to the worker count. Slightly behind for a while, but there was a very good reason for that. He was working hard on making sure he has the best possible army available to him.
Exactly. And ArT, like, he's trying to make up for that with Immortals, but at this point, it's feeling a little bit too late. Like, that's the devastating thing about a mirror matchup, is that when you get put behind, it's so difficult to claw yourself back into it.
Exactly, especially when you're behind this drastically. You have to assume that while you're making these probes, your opponent's making them as well.
Yeah, exactly. ArT's trying to close that gap. He's moving out on the map once again. We see another run by, and there's nothing here. There's never anything here. Oh god.
Man, ArT just never has eyes on the movements of MaNa right now.
And he's just all in at this point. He's committed to this attack. He does blink forward aggressively into all of these zealots though.
Yeah, and is taking a pretty massive punch there. The Archons are getting a little bit of splash damage down. Decent snipe on that War Prism, but it is not going to be enough. MaNa takes game number 1. Now he just needs to take one more, and he can rest a lot easier.
Exactly. GG. Well played. That was a pretty dominant showing there by MaNa, not going to lie. Like he
really
was, yeah, he was like in control of that entire game, mate. That was crazy.
Like ArT was ahead in a couple aspects for quite some time. He had the higher worker count. He was getting his tech and his upgrades at about the same time, and in some instances a little bit quicker.
Mhm.
But he never had that map control, as he said. He never controlled the pace of the game. That was entirely in MaNa's hands.
Yeah, a lot of it did kind of just come down to map vision, right? Like it's so important, and that is why so often we see these top tier Protoss players just constantly sending out hallucinations to not just scout the main bases, but also to scout where the hell the army is.
And as we saw, if you know where the army is, you can make maneuvers like MaNa did. And speaking of which, we are now continuing our series on Oxide LE. We're in the bottom left-hand corner map, spawning all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We have the red Protoss player coming down from the land of Poland. He's representing Team Liquid. He is the player of the bananas, MaNa.
The bananas?
I had to slip that in.
Why? But what?
Was it spammed as banana, I think? Was a copy pasta at one point?
True. Spawning in the top right hand corner of Oxide LE, we have the other Polish player, the other Polish Protoss. He is blue, representing Alpha X. It is ArT.
And I'm honestly really expecting ArT to switch things up here on game number 2, but so far,
Hey,
not.
hey, that's a Nexus first, by the way.
He's insane.
He's lost.
Lost. I don't know what he's thinking right now.
Mate, Nexus first. So we're on Oxide, and Oxide is the map where most commonly we see exactly what MaNa's doing, where you go for the low ground wall. And this is a pretty economic opener, right? Like, we see this quite often on maps like this. Max Pax does it whenever he can, but ArT just took it one step further.
Yeah, typically you go for the low ground wall, and then you go for your Nexus. ArT says, you know what? I'm gonna go for my Nexus, and then go for the high ground wall.
It's a bit odd. It's a bit odd. Very greedy. MaNa did scout it immediately with his probe, and that is why he's sending his zealot across the map to try and punish said greed of ArT. Oh my god.
Whoa, that pylon actually finished up light.
Mate, the pylon finished, and yo, MaNa's like, you went Nexus first? Mate, proxy Stargate in your face. What are you gonna do about it?
As we all know, greed is one of the deadliest sins. And if you commit it, MaNa will show up with his Stargate.
With his bananas, mate. It was
His bananas. He'll show you why it's a sin.
exactly.
He will punish you.
Yeah. Okay, the Zealot does come out, but we also have a Zealot here for MaNa that's going to be protecting this pylon. Even if this pylon goes down, there's a pylon on the low ground to help power all of this.
The shield battery. How funny is it that MaNa's the first place to get the shield battery?
Oh god, the shield battery is done. The shield batteries are still on the way for ArT. He did not have them ready. More shield batteries being thrown down on the high ground.
Yeah, these Void Rays are not going to die anytime soon. Thankfully, these Stalkers do come out right now for ArT. Have a lot more health on them. They will be able to tank a lot more shots from this Adept and that Zealot earlier on. ArT has not lost an army unit just yet, but we'll see how that changes once this Void Ray comes into play.
Exactly, the Void Ray is going to be huge. Thankfully for ArT, it's only going to be a single Void Ray, but mate, with 4 shield batteries to back it up, it's not going to die.
Yeah, not anytime soon. The shield battery's starting to run out of energy for ArT, but he is within the vicinity of a Nexus. Will be able to pop an overcharge. He has to be so careful with his when he uses that though.
And he's forced to use it here, otherwise he was going to lose one of his Stalkers, so overcharge is popped. Meanwhile, we still have 3 full shield batteries worth of energy. One of the shield batteries almost gets picked off, but I don't know, mate.
Yeah, ArT cannot really target him down right now. Not without getting a face full of Void Rays. MaNa has got to be pretty relieved with how this game is going.
And this is why you don't see Nexus first in PvP, mate. Like, I haven't seen anyone else try and go for this, and ArT is being punished hard for it. He does not have enough Stalkers. 2 of them go down, only 2 remaining, 1 remaining.
GG, it is called. MaNa still kind of needs Hearthstone to drop a map, I think, is how